The study I'm going to talk about today was conducted with my honours student, Kathy Bent, and the sample we used was part of the study conducted by Josephine Barbaro that she talked about yesterday. Now, a lot of what I have to say has been foreshadowed by the excellent talks that have gone before me, and it's probably more of an ethological study and less German, but the results are very similar, so it's really nice to see that, you know, these labs from I come from Australia, labs all around the world, I think I have to hang on to this, are coming up with very similar findings despite very different samples. Do I have a control for the slides here? Sorry. Oh, thank you. Now I have control for the slide. The early established deficits in autism appear to be grounded in social attention, and I think the symposium is certainly addressing that, such that affected children do not seem to show the early predisposition to social stimuli which characterises typical development. And indeed, reduced attention might be the earliest quantifiable marker of autism, and I think perhaps the most reliable. In turn, reduced attention to the social world, of course, may alter cortical specialization, so that reduced attention to faces, to voices, to the eyes, may then manifest in impaired social cognition. And we've already seen that in the talks that have gone before. Now, the gaze organizing principle of brain specialization proposes that all interaction between an infant and his or her social partner and the social world during critical periods of early development affects social and language brain-based circuitry, which may have permanent downstream epigenetic consequences. And there has been to date little published work charting the early development of social attention, but given the talks today, clearly a lot of this work will be coming out. And there's also been relatively little work that's looking at children prospectively from early development, but more and more data is coming out on this, which is terrific to see. What we did in, I think I'm getting ahead of okay. What we did in our study is we investigated specific eye gaze behaviours prospectively in a sample of 18-month-old toddlers who were identified as at risk in a community-based sample, who were then later diagnosed with autism at 24 months of age. And we were interested in 3 social attention behaviours. We were interested in social gaze, in attention to the joint activity area, and this is some work that came out of your lab, some work with Fred Schick, and also we also looked at non-social gaze. Now, in social gaze, the toddler looks directly at another person's face, so we didn't use eye tracking here. This was simply coded off videotapes. In attention to the joint activity area, and this is the work from Schick et al., the toddler looks at the area between him or her and her partner while engaged in a shared activity. So attending to the joint activity area is partly social, as it provides some opportunity for social learning. And then in non-social gaze, the infant attends to non-social stimuli like looking at the background, at the furniture, or an object that's outside of the joint activity area. And this behaviour implies that there's no opportunity for social learning in the area of attention. The first aim in the current study was to explore group differences in each of these 3 social attention behaviours, and we looked at differences between children meeting criteria for autistic disorder, those meeting criteria for autism spectrum disorder, so sort of milder milder affected, and a group of children without autism who had either a developmental and or language delay. And we did this at both 18 and 24 months. And we hypothesized that, I'm going ahead of myself again, I think, what's happened here is that my animations, I've animated the slides, and the animations aren't working. So my apologies if my points aren't following. I'll try and not, I'll take that into consideration. Okay, maybe I'll go back. Okay, so we hypothesized that children with autistic disorder and those with milder autism spectrum disorder would display less eye gaze and more non-social gaze, and would also spend less time attending to the joint activity area compared to children in the DDLD group at both 18 and 24 months. The second aim was to chart the development of social attention within the group with autism, with autistic disorder and autism spectrum disorder between the ages of 18 and 24 months. And our final aim was to explore the relationship between social attention at 18 and 24 months and the severity of autism manifestations at 24 months and also cognitive ability at 24 months. The sample comprised 104 children who had been referred to us by their maternal and child health nurse as they displayed key markers, early key markers of autism. And they were assessed on the Mullen scales at each age, and diagnoses were determined at 24 months using the ADOS and the ADIR as part of the social attention and communication study that Josephine Barbaro presented yesterday. Children were classified according to the relevant cutoffs indicative of AD, ASD, or as not meeting criteria for autism. And all but one children in Josie's study didn't meet criteria. All but one children had either autism or a developmental or language delay. So we only had one typically developing child referred, and that child's been excluded. We had 44 children assessed at 18 months, and at this age, the children who had autistic disorder had significantly lower verbal mental ages and overall DQ than those with autism spectrum disorder and the DDLD groups who weren't different from one another. We had 97 children at 24 months, and 37 of these children had been previously seen at 18 months. And children with autistic disorder had not only significantly lower verbal mental ages, but also non-verbal mental ages by 24 months, and also significantly lower overall DQs, of course. The children with ASD and developmental and language disorder remain undifferentiated across these developmental variables, and so we covariate DQ in analyses where appropriate. The coder, who was Kathy Bent, who was my honours student, was blind to the diagnostic status of participants, and so she coded each of the 3 social attention behaviours from 10 minutes of video footage, which was taken during the Mullen assessment, which was done at both 18 and 24 months. So we sort of had the equivalent data at 18 and 24 months. At 18 months, all children spent the greatest proportion of time attending to the joint activity area. And this is probably a function of the using the video of the Mullen scales. The only gaze behavior to differentiate the groups was social gaze. So toddlers who met criteria for autistic disorder, you can see here, spent the least time engaging in social gaze in comparison to the ASD and DDLD groups who weren't different from each other. And the pattern was identical at 24 months, except that all 3 groups were now differentiated from each other on social gaze. So by 24 months, even the children meeting criteria for an autism spectrum disorder had significantly less social gaze than the control children, and they weren't differentiated on the other behaviours. 14 children with autistic disorder and 15 children with autism spectrum disorder attended both the 18 and 24 24-month sessions. And it's apparent from this graph that there's little change in engagement in each of the social attention behaviours from 18 to 24 months. The solid line is the autistic disorder group, the broken line is the ASD group, and the dotted line are represents the control group. So they're really, you can see the top set of lines and blue lines are joint activity where children engage in most attention, but they're really flat. Each of the joint activity, social gaze and non-social gaze doesn't change from 18 to 24 months of age. When we looked at the relationship between the social attention variables at 18 and 24 months and the severity of autism manifestations as assessed on the ADOS total algorithm score, we haven't actually looked at this with Kathy Lord's severity score, and we really have to do that now. What we found were significant and meaningful correlations between social gaze at 18 and 24 months and the ADOS score. Neither the non-social gaze nor the attention to the joint activity area, those measures weren't highly correlated with the ADOS score. Now, DQ, however, at DQ at 18 months was also correlated with the ADOS score, and DQ at 24 months was correlated with both social gaze and the ADOS score. So in our regressions, we entered DQ into the first step of the two regressions to predict autism severity at 24 months. So here's the first regression of social gaze at 18 months, and at step 1, DQ was a unique predictor of autism severity, accounting for 9% of the variance. Then, with the addition of social gaze, cognitive ability was no longer a unique predictor, and the overall model, as you see here, was significant and accounted for 19% of the variance in autism severity at 24 months.